it was like a never ending assembly line of death. It was the remdesivir, ventilator, death, wash, rinse, repeat over and over again. The remdesivir is an antiviral medication. It was at the time it was being used as under an emergency use authorization. Um, but what's interesting about that, it's an antiviral medication, right? So in order for it to be effective, it relies on viral replication. If you remember back when all of this was happening, they were telling COVID patients, oh, you have COVID, go home, you're good. Just come back when you can't breathe, or, when you're a prime candidate for a ventilator. But by the time that these patients were getting to us in the ERs, getting to us in the ICUs, they were already well past their replication phase, several days into their symptomatic phase. So that medication wasn't going to work anyway. That was my biggest question, was why were we using this medication? It was clearly doing more harm than good. All you need to do is go back to the Ebola trials of 2008, and you would see that 54% of those study participants died. I can promise you they didn't lead with that in the informed consent that was not given to patients.
And so the reason why they were giving them remdesivir, just like Dr. Fauci during the AIDS crisis gave people AZT, even though it was toxic and they knew it, just like you're talking about, they knew remdesivir was toxic. And even if it wasn't, they were giving it to them at a time when it wouldn't work, even if it did work, because it wasn't at that stage of the disease that it would work. And the reason why they were doing that was for profit.
Correct. Right. It's a very costly medication. That was another one of my big questions, Jimmy, was, why is the government financially incentivizing the use of this medication? It was about $3,000 to $5,000, I believe, for a 5-day course. And again, it was a medication that wasn't going to be effective. We knew it had an increase in mortality and a decrease in renal function. So we were, basically shutting people's organs down. They were filling with fluid. They were drowning. These patients were drowning, and then we're placing them on a ventilator and we're blowing out their lungs.
And so there was one more treatment that they would give that that increased their speed of death. I learned this from Dr. Drew, is that they would not only would they give them remdesivir, they would deny them actual treatments that had shown to be helpful, but they would put them on a ventilator. And then when they did that, they would give them an opioid, which is going to slow down their breathing. It's the exact opposite of what you should do. So they were giving them this toxic cocktail stew that was that no other thing could happen except death, right? Is that am I right about this?
Yeah, they were putting them on high doses of fentanyl. They were using propofol and midazolam, and they were using these medications and at such high doses. And then, typically when you have a patient that's on a ventilator, usually every morning you have a breathing trial where you'll try to wean off of that sedation, and you are supposed to allow the patient to try to breathe on their own so we can see if we can extubate them. But the doses were so high, there was no way that we could get them weaned off of these medications. And so unfortunately, nobody was able to get off that vent.